How can we fix capitalism? I think it's pretty apparent that it's quite broken right now. I'm Melissa Silver. I'm a CPA who worked in the corporate world for 15 years, and I quit in 2021 to do whatever the hell this is. So I share my thoughts, I try to educate, I want to help small businesses, but I also understand how difficult it is for them to compete with the large corporations because everything is just kind of fixed in their favor. I'm going to give suggestions on how I think we can fix capitalism. I'm not necessarily into we need to do away with money. That's too drastic. We need to leverage the things that make sense, like distribution of food to people. We need to have those things still. I think a few tweaks could really help. So without further ado, welcome to my series on how to fix capitalism. 1, we need wage caps on CEOs. I'll link a video I did below on limits to allowable deductible corporate CEO wages or executive wages. In the States, there is a cap on what companies can deduct. In Canada, no such cap exists. So this is a Canadian issue. Further to that, we need to be limiting the amount that CEOs and high-level executives make. We are seeing now that they are making 10, 20, 100 times what the average employee doing the actual work of the corporation is making. And I think that that should be illegal. Number 2, we need to disallow the waste that happens in corporations. I'm talking about grocery stores throwing out pallets full of food into the dumpsters. I'm talking about retail locations doing the exact same thing. They destroy goods that they can't sell and then they throw it into a dumpster. There are people who do get those goods from the dumpsters and a lot of the time they're destroyed. They shouldn't be allowed to throw that stuff out. Perfectly good stuff. The reason they throw it out is to control the supply, because if there was an abundance of food that they were giving away, they wouldn't be able to sell as much. And that's all write-off to them. Anything they throw in a dumpster, it's considered damaged and it's a tax write-off to those companies. Cut that right out. Idea number 3. We need to properly protect whistleblowers. There are tons of people working within corporations that are being exploited themselves. They're seeing other people be exploited, but they can't say anything. They have either signed an NDA or they're worried to lose their own jobs. If they come forward and expose what's happening, they lose their own livelihood. We need a way that people can expose what's happening with immunity and with compensation from the government. The end result is going to be that the intel collected is going to help change how things are currently working and make things more equitable in the future. So I think that would be a very, very good investment to take care of and protect people who are willing to come forward and expose what's happening. 4th idea, I don't think corporations should be able to have employees sign NDAs. These NDAs make it so that previous employees cannot speak on what stuff that the corporation is up to, whether it's something they've done to them personally or things that they've done that they want you to keep secret. And I don't think they should be allowed to do that and use the law in that way. I think if corporations are doing things that are illegal, it should be exposed, and they should not have the law on their side to silence people who they've paid off to go away. Idea number 5. Corporations should not be protected with immunity. If there are people around a boardroom table making decisions to hike prices in a time when many people cannot afford to eat, this is going to cause people to starve, and there are no consequences for them making those decisions because the corporation is its own entity which can sue and be sued. There is tons of insurance to protect those executives from any sort of culpability for their decisions. And I think that needs to be blown to smithereens, because if people are making decisions that are inadvertently hurting society, there needs to be some accountability for that. And if there was, perhaps their decision-making process would change a little bit. My 6th idea is to tax the churches. This scandal that just recently came out, every day we seem to be hearing about new evils being done by the churches, whether it be victims of SA coming forward or their involvement in the genocide of the indigenous populations. It seems to be a way that money is being laundered. I'm just going to say it. There's no accountability, there's no taxation. That needs to change. they're doing good in the community and spending money to help people, absolutely, tax deduction. Don't pay tax on that part. But all the rest, fucking tax the church. My 7th idea is that the stock market either needs to be wound down or very drastically reformed. I realize how little people actually understand about the stock market. They think that the shareholders are constantly putting money into the corporation. That is not the case. The initial shares are sold, and then all the other buying and selling that happens amongst the shareholders. And then the corporations that have these shareholders are expected to continue to pay more and more dividends. It is getting harder and harder to keep increasing the profits and to keep showing better results every single quarter. We're at a point now where it's pretty impossible to continue increasing the value to those shareholders without gouging customers, harming employees, and doing all this shady shit on the back end to make those results look good. My 8th idea, we need full transparency in financial reporting for all subsidiary companies. US companies, large publicly traded companies such as Walmart, Amazon, and Costco, they operate in Canada as a separate entity, but because they're an American company, the financials are rolled up into the US entity, and that is the financials that are disclosed to the public. However, as Canadians, we should be seeing what the profit margins are, how much tax they're paying, because on the Canadian public companies, we can see that information. It's still not the greatest, but we can at least see it. So I think that that same standard needs to be expected of multinational companies that are operating in Canada to level the playing field. My 9th idea, corporations who take government subsidies need to pay those back to the government, with our taxpayer dollars that they've taken. Those need to be paid back in full before you can give your shareholders 1 red hot cent. Otherwise, the corporations are essentially taking tax dollars because they're, unprofitable or whatever, but they need to keep the facade going for the shareholders. So they take the government money and then give that to the shareholders. So it's essentially like our government is paying shareholders, and that's just wrong. Those are our tax dollars. So yeah, if you take government subsidies in any possible way as a corporation, that needs to be paid back before you can pay your shareholders. And I think that might entice some corporations to think twice before they start taking our tax dollars. My 10th idea is we need to be drastically increasing the amount that corporations pay in taxes. And I'm not talking about the little corporations, the small businesses that I actually want to help. I'm talking about the large conglomerates that when you look at their effective tax rates, they're paying less percent tax than citizens are, and not even the highest earning citizens. So that absolutely needs to change, and it should be on a gradual scale. You should get up to a certain amount that is taxed lower, which it is. Like, there are small business deductions in Canada. As you get up into those multi-millions and billions of dollars, it needs to be drastically taxed. My 11th idea, we need to be taxing corporations more closely tied to their actual revenue dollars brought in rather than their profits. Right now, they can have 500 million in revenue and then 495 million in expenses, and then they're only taxed on the 5 million that's left over. If they were taxed more based on their actual revenue, it wouldn't be as enticing to throw a bunch of other stuff that might not be absolutely necessary for them to earn that revenue into that $495 million. If they knew that off that $500 million, they had to pay, say, $100 million in taxes, I think they'd be a little more careful, and we'd see much less of the bullshit going through as expense. 12th idea is that there should be no more billionaires. No, just full stop. No one needs $1 billion. You make it to $1 billion and then you win capitalism. You get an award saying you won capitalism. After that, anything amassing after $1 billion needs to go to social good, because that money, though, that excess has been extracted from society and it needs to be put back to take care of members of society. And I feel very strongly about that. My 13th idea is we need a hefty robot tax. Anytime a corporation is cutting jobs and automating jobs, whether that be putting in self-checkouts or automating machines in a warehouse or replacing people with software, the money they save not having to pay the salaries, they should not just get to keep all that. And then we have people who are out of work. So if we're going to have everything automated, the people who now no longer have work to do, are going to need to be taken care of. As much as some governments just want to let them die, to me, that's not a feasible solution, and we need to be taking care of people, all people. I know, it's so radical of me, and I'm going to get hate for that, but I said what I said. So anyway, hefty robot tax. Corporations should not get to just funnel more profits up to their shareholders and their executives by cutting people's livelihoods. Let me know your thoughts. If you're a small business owner, I want to help you. I need the rich.